All right, now let's go ahead and jump into today's lecture. Oh, come on, you can do this. All right, today's lecture. Let's see what we have. Okay, that doesn't work here. Some classes have me, they let me have a little remote for the PowerPoint, and like, wow, I feel like I'm moving up in the world. This one doesn't seem to have one. That's okay. Oh, wait. It has the case for one. Oh, well. Anyway, this is week 4. You have survived 3 weeks. Corey, I see you here. Let me get you logged in for the day. Corey.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I'd rather make sure you get the credit for this rather than be here and then not get the attendance credit. Now, can everybody still see my slides?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so this is week 4. Like I said, you survived weeks 1, 2, and 3. This week, we are going to be jumping right into contributor safety. Now, that's the 3rd stage in Clark's psychological safety model. Clark pointed out that a characteristic of being human is that we each desire to participate in a team. We are social creatures. And I just saw, I really got to stop working on my PowerPoints when I'm on the treadmill. Once again, what was that? It should be once again. Oh, well, I'll have to fix that at a later date and time. Too late for it now. My mistake is out there for you to see. You see, in learner safety, we learned that mistakes are par for the course. And I would rather for my mistakes to be displayed from time to time rather than trying to act like I am perfect because I'm the furthest thing from perfect. And as you develop into being a leader, I want to make sure that you are able to realize you are not perfect. And that's okay. We just admit to those. So, yes, there are going to be some errors in here. That happens. Okay, so we are humans. We are social creatures. We like to belong to a social unit. And a team is definitely a social unit. We like to belong to family. We like to have social groups with friends. We are social critters. Clark noted that being human is the only qualifier for the inclusion stage of psychological safety. Now, he brings that up here when discussing contributor safety because he's reminding us that to even get to the point of discussing the 3rd stage, we have to fully understand that just being human is enough to enter the inclusion stage. And without the inclusion stage, there's no learner stage. Without those two, then there's no contributor safety. And without the first 3 stages, there would be no 4th stage. Everything is contingent upon those stages that come before it. So, like we talked about before, if you're a physician and you're trying to get a position as a resident or on staff at a hospital, you have to have your MD. You have to be a doctor of medicine. You have to have your certification for your specialization as well. Have done your residency and all these different things, right? So those are not the factors that Clark is talking about. He's saying once you have those and you're entering into that team of doctors, the one thing that makes you worthy is being human. I like to reiterate that from time to time because sometimes it can get a little confusing thinking, okay, so a plumber can be a neurosurgeon? No, that's not what Clark is saying. So in the learner stage, leaders must encourage each person to participate in learning. Learning is an adventure, it is a process. And the leader is the one that welcomes each individual into that process. Now, like we said before, the manager may not be a leader because management is positional, leadership is a lifestyle, it's behavioral. So the leader of that team might not be the one that is on paper in charge of it. But whoever that leader is, they are the ones that are responsible to encourage each person to learn. Now that we're in the contributor stage, Clark notes that qualifying individuals must show performance to have the earned privilege. because there's going to be an exchange of performance and respect at every stage. If I'm on the team, I've got to prove to the team and to that leader that my performance is worth the privileges I earned to be admitted to the contributor stage. So, what value does each person bring to the team? Do they add or detract from that team's missions, that team's goals, the return on investment, the ROI? If you think about it, ROI is a financial concept. It's batted around in organizations at all levels, particularly the senior leadership, the strategic leadership. But everybody contributes to the ROI of their particular team. If our team has got the goal of making a new form of widget, that is our goal. If we put the performance in, the return on that investment, the investment being our willingness to learn and our performance, the return on that is that we complete creating a new widget. And so while ROI in some cases is financial, but in this case, it's not. It's more related to the goal. So when this is missing, the team, they can no longer stay in the learner stage. They can't stay. If you're missing the attributes of the stage that you're in, if you're in the learner stage trying to move to contributor, if you're a contributor trying to move to challenger, and you are missing major components, you move back to the stage just before, in this case, the learner stage or the inclusion stage, depending where you are at, because you apparently did not learn the type of performance that's required to be on that team. You need to perform to gain the privilege of contributing creative and innovative ideas. Now, the whole social construct or contract, the whole social contract at this point, it is engaged. That team has got a social contract amongst itself that they are going to perform at the level that demonstrates they deserve the privilege they've received. I really wish Zoom would work with me here. Okay, so organizational activity. Clark notes that there's two forms of activity. You have execution and innovation. Execution, this is about economizing work and scaling process, according to Clark. Execution, what that involves is striving for efficiency. Here you could find the principles of Frederick Winslow Taylor, and they would be, for the most part, applicable, with the obvious rejection of anything that harms any particular individual or people groups, whether they be from a different ethnicity, they be migrants, they be children or women. Frederick Winslow Taylor, his views actually endangered many people in those groups. But the seeking efficiency isn't the problem. It was just that he did it at the expense of those that the organization saw as lesser. So there's no variability here. You have to have efficiency to be able to execute. Now, innovation is different. It's the opposite. It's about freedom, imagination, creativity, and the introduction of variability. You have two types of innovation. You have offensive innovation and defensive innovation. The offensive innovation, you are proactive, and this is a response to an opportunity. If you remember back to your SWOT evaluations, your SWOT evaluations, your SWOT analysis, this is in the opportunity column. Now, the defensive innovation, this is reactive, and this is a response to a threat on your SWOT, your SWOT analysis. So an offensive innovation would be developing the next stage in technology without external or internal pressures of competition. So perhaps the first time Apple came out with an iPhone, that would be very offensive innovation. It's like sports. You play offense, you play defense. If you're playing offense, you've got the ball, you're trying to make some sort of score, correct? Last time I checked on scores, that's scores. Short sports. I left my lips in my car. Let me go get them real quick. While defensive, you are reacting to somebody else's offense. And in business, in manufacturing, you are reacting to the your competitors. You may have lost the competitive advantage, and now you are responding to someone else's competitive advantage in the market share. Now, threats. When an external threat challenges the status quo, the natural fear of challenging the status quo is replaced with the survival instinct. Let's break that down. If we look in nature, we see a survival instinct in all forms of critters out there. They want to survive. Therefore, they need to eat, they need to drink, they need to have shelter, and they need to have offspring. The basics of life perpetuating itself. Well, the same thing is very true in an organization. That survival instinct is in the organization. It's in the teams, in their very DNA. So when an external threat, let's say a competitor, rises up a challenge to your product, your service, that's challenging the status quo. You had the competitive advantage, but now you're losing it to someone else who's doing better because they're being offensive in their approach to innovation. So this natural fear of challenging what was established, the way it's always been done, in this moment gets replaced with that survival instinct. That team, that organization wants to survive in the market. So they put aside that fear of challenging the status quo and they challenge the status quo. You go forward, you challenge the areas that need to be fixed, adapted, innovated, and you no longer do things the way we've always done them before, like the good old days. You want to avoid that. We talk a lot about autonomy in this course. In the contributor stage, autonomy is exchanged for performance. And so as you on the team or as your team members demonstrate their performance, that it is to the degree that warrants the privileges they receive, autonomy is given as one of those privileges. You don't want to give autonomy to people who have not proven themselves and their performance. That would be like giving a child of 5 years old the keys to your car. Just not going to work out good for anybody. At the best case, you're going to wind up with scratches all over it because they took the keys and scratched it besides. Same thing with a team. Don't give autonomy to somebody until they have earned it. And you earn that through performance. The leader offers this autonomy and the team member returns the performance. So in this stage of psychological safety, each of the people, each of the individuals must engage with higher levels of accountability. You now need to see yourself as accountable to the leader, to the management, your supervision, your supervisors. You now need to see yourself accountable to your coworkers and your peers because you are able to contribute new ideas. And because of that extra authority, the extra power, you need to be accountable. The more power you have, the more accountable you need to be. Accountability. Yes, it is people making sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. It's also giving feedback to help you do something even better. It is the feedback that really develops in the the contributor stage here. If I contribute an idea to the team and someone else, let's say Peter, he then contributes ideas and feedback to what I just contributed. He might say, maybe we shouldn't do it this way because of X, Y, and Z. But now his feedback strengthens what was originally contributed to the team. So now the accountability I have with Peter has just made our product better and more viable. Feedback is essential in contributor safety. Competency combined with accountability indicates that the person is ready for contributor safety. Competency. the ability to do the task or function that you have been assigned to a satisfactory or better than satisfactory level or degree. Problems will begin to emerge if somebody is given contributor safety before they are ready for it. So don't grant somebody contributor safety before they have proved themselves through the inclusion stage, the learner stage, and their performance. Their performance really is the key indicator you're looking for before you admit somebody to contributor safety. Now, your team is not going to all go through the stages at the same pace. Peter might make it all the way through all the 4 stages, while myself will stay stuck in the learner stage for a longer period of time. Not a problem. Different people learn at different speeds. Different people perform at different speeds also. Take that into account. But you need that competency combined with accountability. Contributor safety can be. There's 4 different types that Clark goes through. One is formal immediate. This involves achieving a formal level of education or preparation. So you go to college at Cleary University. You get your degree in business accounting. Okay. You have prepared yourself through education for a position, while another applicant for that position is going through the formal gradual route. And this is when the individual is placed into a position and needs to develop necessary skills while in that position. They may have been put into a position in accounting without the education, without that experience. And they learn on the job. That's on the job training right there. So now both of us are applying for this position as the accountant. They've been gaining it on the job. I went to college. The third route is informal immediate, and there's no formal or specific qualifications that must be met for the position. Normally, this occurs when there is an immediate need within an organization. So let's say instead of a bunch of people trying to get a position as an accountant, suddenly there's a position for a leader in HR because the former supervisor got into a car accident and they're in the hospital recovering, and it's going to be quite some time till they're back at the job. So we need a supervisor there. Now we bring somebody in immediately because that spot has got to be filled. They may not have had any formal or specific qualifications that they met beforehand, but they've got some leadership experience. Their senior leadership there says this person can figure it out. We'll slide them in there. And lastly, you have the informal gradual. This is when a person grows into the position. In the Army, I was a sergeant. I was training up my specialists, which was E4. They were E4s. I was training them to do my position. I was growing them so they could come in and be a team sergeant. Meanwhile, I was learning the position of a platoon sergeant, and I was learning how to move up and what to do there. So I was training for a position ahead of where I was at, functioning in the position I was in, training somebody below me to take over my position. So that's kind of an informal gradual where you grow into the position. Now, is one of these better than the others? You know what? Each has strengths. Each has weaknesses. I think the one that is the weakest is informal immediate, because that person just gets thrown into that position. They get thrown out to the wolves almost. So let's talk about autonomy a little more. You have 3 types of autonomy. You have task autonomy, and this occurs when a person is only permitted to engage in very specific tasks or projects. So their autonomy is very limited. Process autonomy is here a person is able to show that they are proficient in a very specific task. And because they're proficient, they're given more responsibility. They've learned the process. They've proven that they can do the process. So they are rewarded with more responsibility. Lastly, we have outcome autonomy. This is when somebody is expected to accomplish a task without being led. They operate based on the expectation of task completion. So if you are given a task and you have no leadership above you, that's outcome autonomy. Your autonomy is contingent upon you succeeding in completing the task. This is a direct example of the expectancy theory of motivation. So human characteristics, because let's face it, we have to understand humanity. Organizations are made up of humans. We have yet to be able to get dogs and cats to do our jobs, so we're still out there doing them. Motivation is a human characteristic, and this is when somebody wants to be active and engaged in an activity. They're motivated to do something. You have volition. This here, the person decides to act independently. They think for themselves and they say, you know what? I want to be able to do this task. I'm going to just jump in there and I'm going to learn how to do it. Cognition. This is how the person processes information. Good morning. Good morning. Evening, afternoon. So cognition, this is the thought process. This is hearing or seeing or touching, feeling, somehow using your senses to gain information that then is stored in your brain and then recalled as needed. And it also includes logic and reason. Now you have emotion. Here we find the individual's emotions, their feelings are kind of hard to explain. It's just that, for lack of better words, feeling. I don't know about you, but for me, it's something that's in my brain, but it's almost like I can feel it through my entire body. It's just an emotion of sadness or happiness or elation or anger. And then lastly, we have apprehension. Self-awareness, so that's all your consciousness, leading to knowing their own emotions and ideas. So they can think for themselves. They're free thinkers. They use their cognition. They understand their emotion. They have a personal drive. So they have motivation. They have volition. This is kind of the place where I think somebody should aim to be. It sums up so much of the human experience, the various characteristics. But we can't put that above the rest because the rest can operate independently. So I'd say work on all 5 with your team. But first, before you train your team, train yourself. Clark lists a couple of zones. You have the red zone. You have the blue zone. The red zone is where contributor safety, forgot the why, where contributor safety is either reduced or it is no longer being provided, or it's not being provided at all. Red, danger. Red zone is dangerous for your team. You do not want your team in the red zone. The blue zone, this is where people on the team are able to receive contributor safety. It's where you want to be. Now, let's look at what constitutes each of these zones. The red zone, you have competition, fractures. Now, this is within a team. So the competition within a team is, I'm trying to do better than you so I can get the promotion. I might even try to make you look bad in the process. Fractures, where people were once coworkers or friends, now they've become enemies, but they're on the same team. Silence. If you're on a team and you're not contributing, then why are you on that team? You need to be in some way learning to contribute to that team. Your feedback is important. Risk aversion, fearfulness. You don't want to do something that could make you look like you're not intelligent, that you're not capable, that you're not smart enough, that you don't want to put yourself out there to be humiliated. However, if you're on a team that has psychological safety, we strive to remove humiliation and rejection. So that's why it would be in the red zone. There's no psychological safety there, so you got humiliation. Slow and filtered feedback. In the example I gave, Peter's feedback to my contribution to the team If he decided to, if we were in the red zone, he would take his time. It would be a very slow process for him to give me the feedback, and he wouldn't give me all of it. He would literally meter it out in tiny little chunks. You have debilitating stress. People that are on a team that's in the red zone, it is a very stressful situation. You have self-sabotage. That's where people actually sabotage their own success and the success of the team. Learned helplessness. Helplessness is something that we as people experience from time to time, but a learned helplessness is where a team learns a behavior in a social setting, and then that's what they do. They're programmed to operate in a sense of helplessness. And then compliance. Compliance is the opposite of contribution. Contribution brings creative, innovative ideas. Compliance says, let's stay with the status quo. Now, the blue zone, you have collaboration, working together. Alignment. Everybody on the team, they're aligned. They're working towards the same goals. They're looking at the same items, the same variables. There's engagement. People are involved. They're willing to take risks, calculated risks, but they're willing to take them. Feedback is fast, it's quick. There's renewal and resilience instead of that stress. The team is able to come into work feeling refreshed just by being part of that team. And yes, there's a manageable streak, which is supposed to be stress, but apparently did not work for me then. And I really need to go through these, but I finished this late last night, so I do apologize. So manageable stress. Stress is something we can learn to control, whether as an individual, a team, or an organization. Self-efficacy. Fancy way of saying that you're able to do it yourself. You can figure it out and you can achieve the goal, you can accomplish the task. You're innovative and resourceful as a team. And there's creativity, which is essential for innovation. Self-censorship and self-regulation. Now, this self-regulation is not the same self-regulation that we talk about when we're looking at behavior modification. This self-regulation goes with self-censorship, and it is setting oneself apart from the situation that you're a part of. If you're in a group, you sit by yourself. You keep your comments to yourself. You don't give feedback. You don't contribute ideas. And Clark noted that people tend to regulate their efforts on a team or among a group based on how they are treated. If the team is treating you they're being resentful towards your ideas. They're being argumentative at everything that you bring that could be innovative for the team. Sooner or later, you're going to stop bringing the ideas. You're just going to keep them tucked away in your head, go to work, do your job, and leave. We must be cognizant of how we are perceived by others. If you haven't taken organizational behavior yet, when you do, you'll learn about perception. And it is extremely important to perceive other people properly, but also to understand you yourself are being perceived by the people you are perceiving. So that can have an effect in tempering how we react with our attitudes, with our behaviors. Motivation. Kaneki and Fugit, who I absolutely enjoy their work. It is about a 300, 400-page textbook. I would not recommend you get that unless it's something you really want to do. It was a text that I used in my second run through grad school. They have some great definitions for motivation, and I wanted to go over those. In the theories, you have McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. Now, Theory X is a pessimistic way of looking at your employees. You think that they dislike working, that they must be motivated, and that motivation can only be accomplished using rewards and punishments. Where Theory Y thinks highly of the people and that they are already motivated and that you can correct behavior, but you don't have to do it through the classical behavioral modification approach. You can actually trust that they will self-regulate their behavior. And so it's giving trust to your employees. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs states that motivation is a function of 5 basic needs: physical safety, psychological safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. How can I go through the process of self-assessment, self-actualization if I do not have food, water, shelter, if I do not have friends and family? It's a very, very difficult to focus on things when your basic needs are not being met. And we tend to focus our attention on the areas that we have needs, where we need that product, that item, that service, such as we will focus on if we're really hungry, we will notice every store that has food. If we're thirsty, we'll notice every place that sells beverages. So our perception then turns to what is it that we need versus what is it that we want and what is it that would actually be beneficial for our future in the long run. Now there's the acquired needs theory. This states that there are three needs. You have the achievement, affiliation, and power. And these are the key drivers of employee behavior in this theory. So achievement, the ability to get promoted at work or to be recognized. Affiliation, that you belong to a social group, organization at work. You belong to a social group in your private life, that is your friends and family. And you may belong to social groups as a member. You might go to the Lions Club, or you might be going to the Moose Lodge or whatever. But you've got some form of affiliation and power. This power is kind of weird here. We're not talking necessarily that authority that the top dog of the organization always has, but that you have power over your life to be able to affect changes, to make your world better. That you have power over the situations, that you can get out of a negative situation if needs be. Continuing motivation. I am so sorry. I need to start just giving extra credit points for when you guys find these. I'm not going to do that yet because you'll be getting 100 points every week. Self-determination theory. Here, there's an assumption that three innate needs of being human, that these influence our behavior and our well-being. And those are competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Competence, you're able to function in the task that you are working on. Autonomy, you're free to be able to think about what needs to be done to accomplish that task. And relatedness, that it's related, particularly, I'd say, in your mind, to things that you are actually prone to enjoy. Maybe you enjoy engineering and mathematics, and so working on an engineering product or project would be fulfilling your own self-determination. You'd be accomplishing the goals you have in your life. You determine for yourself what you want to achieve. Now, Hertzberg's motivator hygiene theory, here we find this proposes that job satisfaction and dissatisfaction form two sets of factors. Satisfaction comes from motivating factors and dissatisfaction from hygiene factors. We're not going to go into great detail on this because, to be honest, I think Hertzberg's theory pretty much has been put to the wayside in a lot of ways, but it's good knowing that it was a step along the path. The two sets of factors. You're satisfied from things that motivate you, and you're dissatisfied from things that are routine, kind of like the daily hygiene of brushing your teeth. So at work, the things that are just routine, just regular, mundane, everyday activities, these actually can form the dissatisfaction in employees. The equity and justice theory. This is a model of motivation that explains how individuals strive for fairness and justice in social exchanges or give and take relationships. We find here that there is a tie into social justice as humanity as a whole, organizational justice for people groups, and equity. Obviously, DEI is a huge concept and actually something I think every organization needs to learn to excel in, but treating people fairly. What I want to receive is what I want to make sure you receive. I shouldn't expect really good things for myself and then not for you also. That would actually be hypocritical. But you see that sometimes where a leader says, oh, I want only the best, but my staff is going to get paid barely minimum wage. They're not going to have much in the way of benefits outside of what we're mandated by law to provide. No, if you're in that position, you want to be able to give the same to your employees, your staff, as you yourself want and actually receive. Expectancy theory. This is the one I think a lot of people actually are motivated by. This says that if you want to get the reward, you do the work. If you want the paycheck, you put in the 40-hour work week and you put your performance, you prove your performance, and you excel at doing your tasks. You also see expectancy theory in sports. If you train religiously for years and practice, and then you go to a competition, you expect that you're going to do good. Maybe somebody will be better than you, but you're pushing yourself to be the best that you can be. And you expect that your performance will show that. Now, the goal setting theory, specific and difficult goals lead to higher performance than general goals like, oh, just do your best or improve your performance. So when you're talking to an employee and you know you have to motivate them, don't tell them in their performance review, you just need to do your best. Tell them, here's what you need to do to actually be doing your best. This is what it would look like. You're showing up to work on time. You're prepared. You're ready. Your attitude is good towards the team and the rest of the organization, that you're focused on your task and that you're humble and willing to learn, things like that. So let's talk about goals after I take a drink. Clark pointed out that people tend to manage their efforts in an organization depending on how their leader treats them. If your leader treats you poorly, you're not going to perform very much that often, that well, that good. You're not going to put your entire intellect into the project. You're not going to put your entire physical strength into the project. You're going to do just enough to scrape by. You see this all the time in the workplace. When employees are treated poorly, they literally do the bare minimum. You don't believe me? Stand around Walmart for a while. You might have to go on a couple of occasions to different departments, but just sit there as an observer and just watch. Watch what the employees do. Are they just going through the actions, kind of slowly, haphazardly putting items, or are they, boom, one after another, stocking the shelf, going, getting another cart, coming back? Are they pouring themselves totally into their task? Now, Clark did warn against thinking, types of thinking that, or I should say, thinking that introverts, the individuals who are introverted, cannot contribute to the team. Now, originally, introverted was actually a slightly different definition than what it is today. But let's look at how it's used today, because that's the context that we're using it in. Somebody who keeps to themselves, they're not, when I say socially outgoing, they're not out making friends. If they walk into a room with 20 strangers, they leave without knowing a single person still. Versus an extrovert who walks into that room with 20 strangers, comes out with 19 business cards. Extroverts are networkers. But what if somebody's both? An introverted, extroverted individual. Can that happen? Yeah, I'm that way. I am very social. I can talk to anybody. But I got time periods where I just like to be alone for a week or two on end. And I need that for myself to grow, to recharge my brain. So yes, you can be both. But most people think, oh, he's just an extrovert. That's because they don't see me when I'm in my introverted phase. So according to Clark, neither high IQ nor EQ, so intelligence quotient or emotional quotient, are required to provide contributor safety. You do not have to be Mensa smart to be able to provide contributor safety for your team. You don't have to be such a high score in the EQ charts that you are this empathic, just caring individual, this human of humans that just is there for their team. You literally can be an average everyday person and provide contributor safety for the team. Extremes have to be avoided. Are you familiar with the pendulum that goes from one side to the other and just swing back and forth until gravity slowly starts slowing it down and it kind of just comes to that middle area and then it stops finally? Those are extremes. You can have on one extreme extroversion, the other extreme introversion. And you can take any human quality, any human emotion, any human characteristic, and you can put it on a scale, a spectrum, because humanity is not set in stone. You and I may get the same test score, but have a totally different IQ number. We could treat people exactly the same, but yet on an EQ test, we show up as being different. Humans are very unique. So allow for this differentiation to be in your team. We have to consider how our demeanor impacts contributor safety. If I come into a team, an organizational environment, and having years of experience as an authoritarian style leader, I could come in acting like a sergeant. Whether a military sergeant or law enforcement sergeant, I could come in acting that way. Or I could add servant leadership into the authoritarian and still be able to get the job done with precision, but also treating people humanely and ethically and fairly. That is possible. And remember, we've talked before, you can blend leadership styles. I learned that years ago in the Army. I had to do authoritarian style leadership because that's what they expected. But I wanted to treat people like they were humans. And I didn't even know what to call it at the time. Years later, I found it's called servant leadership. If you're ever interested in looking it up, the researcher's name is Robert Greenleaf. He did some fantastic work. Charisma and leadership. Many times you see at the bookstore or online or wherever you're at, leadership coaches. You see books on leadership. You have podcasts on leadership. Everything on leadership. And so many times they say you have to have lots of charisma. Because if you're going to lead people, if you're going to have people following you, be charismatic so that they are willing to follow you. I say they are wrong. Charisma has its place, but it is not the solution that all these quote unquote pseudo experts like to claim it is. Charisma actually led for a large group of people to move across country. This is back in the 1960s, early 70s, somewhere around there. They then uprooted after giving all their money to this one particular man, who their leader, and living in a commune. They moved to South America, to a place they called Jonestown. They named it after their founder, Jim Jones. He had charisma. Oh, he had tons of charisma. Most of the people that moved down to Jonestown wound up killing themselves with the poison Kool-Aid. That's where the saying about drinking the Kool-Aid comes from. That's where it originated. It wasn't Kool-Aid. It was actually Flavor Aid, I think, that they used. But colloquially, we say Kool-Aid. Charisma has led many a person to follow a cult leader. So don't think you have to be charismatic. I'd say be authentic. Authenticity as a leader is more valuable than charisma on any day of the week. You will motivate people. You will be able to encourage people by far easier, and they're going to want to be a part of your team if you're authentic. And yes, it means admitting when you make mistakes. I know it's just some spelling mistakes, but you know what? I'm a professor. I have a doctorate. I shouldn't have spelling errors. But you know what? I'm human. I'm like you. I only have 24 hours in a day. So I worked on this while I was on my treadmill. Did I go through it? No, because I had laundry to do afterwards. And by the time that was all done, I had to eat my salad for dinner. And after that was done, I was exhausted. My back was hurting and I laid down. Next thing I know, it's morning. I'm human. Don't try to portray yourself as being superhuman. Of course, we think about Superman from the cartoons, but that's a concept that goes back to pre-World War II. Uberman, German, for the perfect man. Look what that concept kind of got Europe involved for a number of years, for about a decade and a half. Don't think that you have got to portray yourself as better than you honestly, truly are. Be authentic. Let your mistakes show. And you want to know what? You'll have people that will come up to you and they'll say, "You're my favorite leader. You know, you just seem so real. I don't feel like I've got to be something I'm not when I'm around you. I don't have to pretend. You let me be myself." So be authentic. So, and also avoid anybody out there who is online or in these books trying to sell you a quick way to leadership in 400 pages or less. True leadership is so simple yet extremely complex. It's simple to actually do. It's complex to understand the hows and whys and all the little moving parts of it. But you guys are already onto a very good path. Look at you. You're getting your degrees. You're seniors. And you're taking a class in leadership, one that emphasizes psychological safety. Your professor, his dissertation actually used diversity, equity, and inclusion as the framework. In other words, a person is here who likes, loves, is passionate about humanity, mistakes and all, to try to teach you about leadership. If you don't remember anything I say, remember that to be a leader, you need to be authentically human. Emotional maturity is extremely necessary in contributor safety. Clark recommends us to not avoid leadership roles or giving contributor safety just because we think nobody will follow us. What sport do you play? Wrestling. Wrestling, awesome. I need to talk to you afterward. I'm serious about that. Peter, what sport are you in a sport?
Hockey and baseball.
Yeah,
Hockey and baseball.
awesome. Are you in a sport?
Not anymore.
What were you in? See, this is awesome. Sports teaches you leadership. You can learn more about leadership from sports than you can these fake leadership gurus. But you've been learning leadership. What we're doing before you graduate is we're tying this nice bow on top and we're saying, you've got this. Yes, you don't know everything about leadership. I've got multiple degrees in the field. I don't know everything about leadership because I can't know every single thing about every single human being that is on the planet. Leadership is complex and diverse because your people, your team is complex and diverse. Humans are very complex critters. Our thought processes, everything, the way we communicate, our lives, our emotions, there's such a high degree of complexity that it literally is mind-blowing. It has the same complexity as the galaxy. Oh, and by the way, just your brain alone, you got a few trillion cells just in your brain that work to give you the ability to think, to reason, to use logic, to feel, to perceive, to collect information around you, to understand who you are as a human. You, the unique person that's you. Your brain operates at speeds that computers honestly can't get to, and I don't know if they ever will get to that level. Oh, our computers go fast. Don't get me wrong. Supercomputers are amazing. But our brain is so complex to try to mimic that through engineering has been a very rocky road. Toxic work environments. Let's check our time here, okay? I think we're going to finish toxic work environments and then we'll see where we stand with the slides. Toxic work environments. There's several ways you can wind up in one of these. One is there is a type of leadership called toxic leadership. Most people in my specialty field, my area, list down the types of leadership. good and the bad. And we work through them. We try to understand through psychology and sociology what makes this a bad leadership style versus this one. Toxic leadership actually does something strange. I was reading a master's thesis. The guy's name was, his last name was Schmidt. I forget his first name. Fantastic master's thesis. Fantastic. He took narcissistic leadership, took that off of being a leadership style, and noted that one of the three contributing factors to a toxic leader was narcissistic traits, abusive traits, and self-centered traits. Now, it seems like I'm saying the same thing in some places, but I'm not. One is the narcissism of I'm perfect, I'm good, I've got it figured out. If you don't think like me, you're wrong. Self-centered is everything that's done by this organization somehow must benefit ultimately me, namely financially. And three, abusive, that even if you're doing good, if you get on my bad side, I will curse at you and yell at you and make your life miserable and make you work overtime without pay. So he defined toxic leadership in a way that literally takes narcissistic leadership and moves it really out of the forefront. Because a toxic leader creates an environment where they're motivated for their personal gain. They're mean-spirited in their work atmosphere. And as Clark points out, mean-spirited comments, unethical behavior, abuse, and bullying tend to follow. This removes, reduces, and makes it impossible to have psychological safety at any level. The only person who is psychologically safe is the toxic leader himself. Even the core group of people that he surrounds himself with is not safe, because at a moment's notice, with the change of the direction of wind, it's something as simple as that, he can turn on them. You see this a lot in dictators historically. You look at Stalin, you look at even Hitler, Mussolini, just to start enlisting a few, you look at the governments that came out of dictators, the Khmer Rouge. You look at the way they looked at the world around them, extremely toxic. So while autonomy is exchanged for performance, as leaders, we need to continually assess the risks associated with each task. So we're basically in a perpetual risk assessment and management mode. We're also in another mode. We continually and perpetually assess our team. But we don't do it as something that's a check mark on a list of things to do every day. Just in interacting with our team. Let's say we're having a pep talk in our team meeting room, and I'm giving you the pep talk right now. I am paying attention, all these little things going on. I'm watching about how you're paying attention to me, what you're doing, how your posture is, what your facial expressions look like. When you speak, the inflections in your voice. It takes years to train yourself to be able to do that all simultaneously while carrying on a conversation, but it is possible. The only thing I will say is don't try to do that while you're trying to type something on a treadmill, because you will have spelling errors. If you can't poke fun at yourself, what good is it? Okay, so never avoid contributor safety to avert a risk. However, if the risk is too detrimental, it may be a very unwise decision to move in that direction. But it's not for wanting to remove contributor safety. It's literally for the safety of your team. The reason we want to monitor our team on a regular basis is to make sure that they can handle the level of autonomy that they have been granted. If they can't handle that level of autonomy, perhaps we need to take some of it back. But we should never do it in a way that seems like it's discipline, but rather concern for their development professionally. You can remove a little autonomy by saying, I need you to focus on this right here. And at this time, I want you reporting to me or to someone else. And I want you to be fully autonomous in this, but we're going to build you up to that. I have noticed some things that it looks like that maybe you can't quite yet handle it. And you're not being punished. We're just working with you. You're not being rewarded. You're not being punished. We're literally just trying to raise you up. Ego management becomes the priority for the entire team. And that's because just like a team that went slide 18. Yeah, we're gonna stop there. I think. Let me see. Yeah, we're gonna stop on slide 18. Ego management. Okay, so teams, organizations begin to develop personalities. Did you know an organization can actually have a psychiatric disorder? I actually learned in my doctoral work how to actually diagnose an organization using the DSM-5. There are organizations that are narcissistic. And to be more precise, you have toxic narcissity, communal narcissity, you have covert narcissism, and you have organizations that fall into those. You have organizations that are bipolar, major depressive disorder, because organizations are made up of humans. Humans, we imitate what we know. So if you look around, an organization is designed, it's set up, it's structured much like the human body. You got the senior leadership, your nervous system, your head, your brain, or I should say your central nervous system. You've got your middle leadership, the nerves going through the peripheral parts of your body, connecting organs and everything. You've got your lower level leadership, the sensors at the ends of those nerves. You have the workers, the muscles, the cells, the organs. Organs are departments. A human body is a wonderful analogy for an organization. That's because we can only make things that we truly can understand. We can't truly make something that we can't fathom. That type of innovation has yet to actually occur. We started with a club, a wheel, a wagon, a plow. And now we've got tractors that run on diesel, even some that run on solar. We got 18-wheelers hauling goods around, all based off of things as simple as the wheel and the cart. We develop our technology based on what we know. Your space program, same thing. What helped get that going? Flight, aviation. And a lot of sacrifice and mistakes. So let's see, we have 30 minutes left today. We've got about 10, 15 minutes left on this video. Who would like to see the rest of that video today? We got about 15 minutes left. Or would you rather go early today and watch that on Thursday? I'll let you all decide. We have a watch it Thursday. How about the rest of you here?
Fine.
It's fine? Okay. Online, are you okay if you watch the video, finish that video on Thursday? Wednesday, I'm sorry. Thank you. You know, I need an assistant to make sure that I don't say stupid stuff like this. Okay, my online class, since no one is voting, I'm just going to make the decision based upon the board members that were assembled here, the rest of the class. We will finish that video on Wednesday, not Thursday. I repeat, it is Wednesday. We will be meeting on Zoom Wednesday. I'll be coming to you live in concert from my living room. Please excuse my neighbor who's taken up stomping around upstairs because she doesn't like my music, and my music is only about 45 decibels. Her stomping is about 70. I know, I did a sound study yesterday. Yeah, so hopefully she'll be out getting groceries or asleep. Anyway, Wednesday at 2:45 p.m. Wednesday, right? Wednesday, 2:45 p.m. Zoom. I shall see each and every person. I'm just going to make sure I got everybody clocked in. Savina, I see you. Don't worry. I'll mark you down. Okay, and that's the last one I need to mark down. Okay, class is dismissed. If I can talk to you, sir, in a moment. I need to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Just get some of this taken care of so I can start processing the video. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to let you know that I'm not going to be on the Zoom on Wednesday because I have a golf tournament I have to play in. I'll
Okay.
send you an email to remind you, but just want to let you know too.
Yes, please send me an email because we saw what my brain is like today. It's basically a mashed potato. Thank you. Send me an email and I'll mark you down excused for sports, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. You take care. Thank you, good sir. Peter, catch you later.
I just got a question.
Sure, let me just